Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. The overall cannabis sector was off to a positive start on the first trading day of the week. The ETFMG Alternative Harvest Index gained nearly 1.2%, while the Horizons Marijuana Life Index was up almost 1.7%. Canopy Growth was among the strongest gainers, with its stock raising almost 5% in the market. The enthusiasm for Canopy Growth was driven mainly by its recent announcement of Acreage Holdings acquisition for a value of $3.4 billion. Cronos Group was also in positive territory with a gain of 4%. However, the stock has declined nearly 13% since the beginning of the month as investors are put off by the latest earnings season. And Hexco was also trading higher by 4.5%. Quality control isn't keeping Canada from coming back in with excessive amounts of capital. We saw Acreage Holdings being bought by Canopy Growth last week for $3.4 billion. And so there's just more and more evidence of that Canadian capital coming back into the U.S. marketplace and gobbling companies up. And so there's legal cannabis is pivoting from Canada to the U.S. and is accelerating. American companies with the wherewithal to be able to expand to multi-states and take advantage of the opportunities could be buyouts for these Canadian companies with a cheap valuation. There's a lot of speculation in the Canadian marketplace where the stock prices are astronomically high relative to the value of the American companies who are still privately held. And so with those valuations being a lot higher up in Canada, they're going to be coming back down and making a lot of mergers and acquisitions. The American market is fast becoming a growth story, with the federal government talking about possible legalization of cannabis and companies accessing capital markets. For investors, as fragmented U.S. state policies are possibly replaced with federal legalized cannabis use down the road, the market valuations put on an American company are expected to continue to climb. So while the biggest revenue-producing cannabis companies are American, their valuations remain a fraction of those of their Canadian peers. That's expected to change as Americans move closer to possible legalization. The U.S. multiples are going to go up because until the States Act passes, we still haven't seen fundamental investors come into the industry. Is the cannabis industry recession-proof? I think you can go back in history and look at sin stocks, that is tobacco, sex, alcohol. You look at any of those companies that are publicly traded, and they all go up in times of recession or depression. And so as we kind of come into an era of a market correction, at least, if not an all-out recession, you're going to see cannabis stocks increasing, not just because of speculation, but as people exit other traditional forms of investment, like the stock exchange and housing and other investment vehicles. They will go into sin stocks. As everything else decreases, sin stocks typically go up. And you'll see that as legalization moves forward and as speculation increases, all those valuations will push those companies sky high and create a bubble territory. The U.S. is currently in the midst of one of its longest economic expansions since the Civil War, but there's a very real possibility that we're in the later innings of this expansion than most people realize. This raises a question: is the cannabis industry recession-proof? We can look at evidences from other vice industries, including tobacco and alcohol, to make an analogy about cannabis purchases. So according to financial information from SageWorks, alcoholic beverage sales grew by 10% in the U.S. in the trailing 12-month period following the steepest recession in 7 decades, with an unemployment rate of 9.3%. Sales of alcohol also expanded 9% in 2008, the first full year of the Great Recession, when the average unemployment rate was much lower at 5.8%. And while it's true that consumers may change how they purchase alcohol, the takeaway is that consumers continue to drink regardless of the economy. And with that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out.